This whole thing started the day I was walking home from school and somehow ended up meeting God face to face. And no joke, the guy gave me two options straight away. On one side was a perfect SAT-style score with every single mark possible, and on the other side was $10 million in cash. Now be honest, who would even think twice? Delaying even 1 second would have felt disrespectful to the money. I mean, if someone already had $10 million, why would they suffer through exams like a zombie? But somehow, I picked the perfect score instead. And the reason behind that was honestly pretty stupid. The night before the exam, I had seen a random post online. Someone asked, "What would you choose? $10 million or becoming the top student in the country?" I thought it was the dumbest question ever, so I jumped into the comments and wrote, "Forget the grades, just hand me the money." Then the guy replied, "Try choosing the other option once." So I jokingly answered that degrees were basically everywhere these days. With $10 million, I could literally hire thousands of college graduates myself. But then I added one more thing for fun. I said if becoming the top student also came with some kind of magical ability, then maybe I'd choose the score instead. There was only one condition. I wasn't allowed to tell anyone about it, or the magic would disappear instantly. I laughed and agreed to it, like an idiot. Honestly, if it turned out to be real, even my dead ancestors would probably crawl out of their graves just to celebrate. The next morning, the exam paper landed on my desk, and my soul almost left my body. The second my eyes touched the questions, answers started exploding inside my head like fireworks. Questions that never made sense before suddenly looked ridiculously easy. Perfect answers were appearing in my mind automatically. And the weirdest part? My handwriting changed too. Normally, my writing looked like a raccoon fighting with a pen. But now every word looked smooth and elegant, like some professional artist had written it. I finished the paper insanely fast and walked out early. Just to test things, I grabbed a random sheet of paper and wrote, "I'm insanely handsome." The handwriting looked so beautiful that for a second, I genuinely felt like I could become famous just from writing alone. That evening was the math exam, and honestly, that's when things became terrifying. For every single question, my brain kept generating dozens of different solving methods instantly. Some formulas didn't even look real anymore, like they belonged in another universe. After the exam ended, the entire hallway looked like a funeral scene. Students were panicking and crying because the final question was supposedly impossible and completely outside the syllabus. Meanwhile, I just walked past everyone with the most smug smile imaginable. A few weeks later, when the papers were being checked, chaos broke out at the evaluation center. The head examiner, Mr. Collins, was known for being extremely strict. But then one teacher suddenly called him over and said he needed to see a particular essay immediately. The moment Mr. Collins looked at the paper, his eyes widened. He stared at the handwriting for a few seconds before saying, "Honestly, even if this student had written complete nonsense, I'd still want to give extra points just for the handwriting alone." But once he actually started reading the essay, the expression on his face completely changed. Goosebumps spread across his arms instantly. In just 1,000 words, that guy had basically squeezed the entire history and geography of the country into one essay so perfectly that the examiners were stunned. Then came the math section. And honestly, that created an even bigger mess. The professors checking the paper were literally scratching their heads in confusion. The answers were completely correct, but the solving methods made no sense to them. One of them even admitted they had never seen formulas or approaches like that before in their entire career. When the final results came out, I ranked #1 in the entire country with a perfect score. The whole neighborhood lost its mind. The same classmates who used to treat me like some useless backbencher suddenly started acting respectful overnight. Some of them were practically worshiping me now. But the people who were truly shocked were the university professors. None of them could figure out how I had solved those impossible math problems. A few days later, universities started lining up outside my house. My dad nearly had a heart attack after seeing the news on TV. He yelled at my mom and said, "Hey, come here for a second. Some genius kid on TV has the exact same name as our son." I walked out of my room and quietly told him it actually was me. The moment he saw the result sheet himself, he rushed straight outside. I asked where he was going. He said he needed to check whether some miracle had happened at our ancestors' graves because there was no logical explanation for this level of success. Everyone assumed I'd join some elite university next, but then I shocked the entire country again. I announced that I wasn't going to college. Instead, I was going to take the national exams all over again. People genuinely thought I had gone insane, but I had my own plan. I wanted the exam creators to feel challenged, so they would start making the questions harder and harder, because my real secret was something nobody could even imagine. Whenever I took an exam, every piece of knowledge related to that subject automatically entered my brain completely. So if future exams started including advanced technology or scientific problems the country still couldn't solve, I could basically become a world-class scientist without even leaving home. The next day, reporters and major university officials flooded my house again. One university offered free tuition and even promised me a luxury apartment near campus. Another offered a monthly allowance just to join them. One research institute even promised me a private lab along with a massive funding deal. But the second I announced that I planned to repeat the exams like an ordinary student again, everyone froze. One reporter asked me directly, "You already became #1 in the country. Why would you take the exams again?" I looked straight into the camera and answered calmly. Because this year's questions were way too easy. I barely had to use half my brain. That single statement turned the entire student community against me instantly. Students preparing for next year's exams were furious. Some of them genuinely looked ready to hunt me down. People online kept asking whether I was even human anymore, but honestly, I didn't care at all. At that point, the only thing on my mind was going on dates with my school crush, who had somehow become my girlfriend after the results. Time passed quickly, and before I knew it, the next exam season had arrived. And just like before, the area outside the exam center looked like complete chaos. Crowds, cameras, reporters, everyone was already waiting for me before I even stepped out of the car. There he is again, last year's national topper and this year's biggest menace in the student world is back for round 2. The reporters had already surrounded me before I even entered the exam center. One of them shoved a microphone toward my face and asked, "So what's the target this year? Another perfect score?" I laughed and casually replied, "Nothing special. Same as last time. Just planning to get every single mark again." The reporter's eyes instantly lit up. You could practically see tomorrow's headline forming inside his head. "The arrogance of the genius returns." Another reporter jumped in and said, "Last year you publicly embarrassed the exam committee. People heard they were furious afterward. Apparently this year's paper was designed to destroy students mentally. Aren't you worried things might backfire?" I smiled and shook my head. "Look, I've got nothing against the people making the exams. I'm just saying that compared to me, everyone standing here is still running on beginner mode." Standing beside me was my girlfriend, Emma. The moment reporters noticed her, they immediately started asking who she was. Without hesitation, I grabbed her hand and proudly said, "She's my girlfriend." And just like that, camera flashes exploded everywhere like fireworks. The reporters had found their perfect headline material, and I already knew those pictures would be all over the internet by morning. Soon the exam began. And honestly, my prediction had been completely correct. The second I looked at the questions, answers started appearing in my head automatically again, almost like someone was printing them directly into my brain. This time, I even changed my handwriting style on purpose. Every word looked unbelievably elegant, almost unreal. The teachers supervising the classroom kept walking past my desk over and over again. None of them could believe that a 19-year-old guy could write that fast while still making every sentence look like professional calligraphy. But then came the exam committee's secret weapon, the hardest question on the entire paper. Students were asked to continue the story of a legendary classic novel and write at least 600 words in the exact same literary style. It was basically like asking random students to suddenly write the sequel to a world-famous movie on the spot. The entire classroom froze. Some students were already holding their heads in despair. Meanwhile, I simply picked up my pen and started writing immediately. Page after page filled up effortlessly. By the time I submitted the paper early and walked out of the room, the other students were staring at me like I wasn't even human anymore. A few weeks later, the results dropped, and once again, the entire country exploded. I had become the #1 student in the nation for the second year in a row. The internet completely lost its mind. Thousands of people accused me of cheating or having connections behind the scenes. Some demanded that my papers should be released publicly because nobody believed someone could be that perfect naturally. Eventually, the government gave in and published the special novel continuation I had written during the exam. And suddenly, the same people who had been insulting me online a day earlier completely changed their attitude. Famous authors, professors, and literary experts started praising the writing publicly. Some even claimed that the continuation felt so authentic it could have been written by the original author himself. Others started calling me a once-in-a-generation genius. At that point, people online had basically stopped treating me like a normal student altogether. People couldn't stop talking about my handwriting anymore. Some even joked that if I had been born in ancient times, kings would have weighed me in gold just for writing a single page. Not long after that, several famous members of the National Literature Association showed up at my house personally. They told me the novel continuation I had written during the exam was unbelievable and begged me to finish the full story properly. They even promised to pay whatever amount I wanted. Looking at how serious they were, I finally agreed. Right there in front of them, I picked up a pen and completed the story's ending. And honestly, By the time I finished reading the final page out loud, some of those old literary legends literally had tears in their eyes. They immediately bought the publishing rights for millions of dollars. But before signing the deal, I gave them one condition. I told them to deliver a personal message to the people creating next year's exams. Tell them to make the next paper so difficult that even geniuses start sweating. The old men looked completely speechless. One of them finally asked, "What exactly is your problem with exams? Why are you treating the education system like your personal enemy?" While all this chaos was happening around me, another unexpected thing was going on somewhere else. Emma's father, Mr. Anderson, one of the biggest names in the business world, had just finished reading my published story, and the guy was literally emotional afterward. He told his secretary to find out who the author was because he hadn't enjoyed reading something that much in years. So the secretary turned on the TV and immediately froze because the news channel was showing pictures of me standing beside Emma outside the exam center. Mr. Anderson stared at the screen silently for a few seconds. The secretary honestly thought a disaster was coming. But instead, the man suddenly said, "This kid became a national celebrity and still hasn't come to meet his future father-in-law?" The secretary nearly stopped breathing after hearing that. The very next day, Mr. Anderson invited Emma to dinner. The moment she sat down, he looked serious and asked, "This genius writer is your boyfriend, right?" Emma instantly became nervous. She started defending me before he could say anything else, explaining how hardworking and kind I was. But Mr. Anderson simply raised his hand and stopped her. Then he calmly said, "No, you're the one who needs to work harder now." Emma blinked in confusion. He continued, "Otherwise, how are you supposed to become worthy of a guy this talented? From now on, you should start treating him like your future husband." Emma's brain basically crashed on the spot. She genuinely couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then her father laughed and added, "Of course I approve of him, but I do want one small gift." Emma carefully asked what he wanted, and Mr. Anderson immediately replied, "I want the original handwritten manuscript of that novel." At that point, Emma finally realized her dad had become a bigger fan of my writing than anyone else. Later, when she told me about the conversation, I just laughed and pulled her into a hug. Then I reminded her that the original manuscript already belonged to her because I had gifted it to her earlier. I told her she never needed my permission to give it away to anyone because what was mine was already hers too. The moment she heard that, tears filled her eyes. At that point, every remaining wall between us had completely disappeared. People always say that when luck is on your side, even an ordinary person can become extraordinary. But honestly, I wasn't relying on luck anymore. It felt like I was writing my own destiny with my own hands. A few days later, Emma and I finally went to meet my future father-in-law properly. Everything was going smoothly. The atmosphere was relaxed, dinner was great, and even the staff looked happy. But then Mr. Anderson suddenly cleared his throat and dropped a bombshell that completely changed the mood in the room. "Son, everything looks good between you two, but when exactly are you planning to get married?" The moment Emma's dad said that, she almost choked on her drink and accidentally spit her tea straight toward him. She looked completely horrified. "Dad, what are you even talking about? We're busy with our lives right now." Honestly, I already knew Mr. Anderson liked me a lot. What I didn't know was that he was this desperate to make me part of the family. Even I had to step in carefully and remind him, "Sir, we're only 19. The guy slapped his own forehead like he had forgotten basic math. "Oh, right. Fine, maybe not marriage yet, but engagement is still possible, right? We can at least arrange the families to meet and set everything officially." Emma looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. "Dad, why are you rushing this so much?" But Mr. Anderson refused to back down. He pointed directly at me and said, "Do you think I'm letting a once-in-a-generation genius escape? What if some other family steals him first?" Honestly, I had no counter-argument for that level of panic. Somehow, we managed to calm him down and escape from there before he started booking wedding venues. A few months later, the national exam results were announced once again. Everyone expected another perfect score from me, but this time, the final result showed one mark less. 749 out of 750. The entire country went crazy trying to figure out how someone like me could even lose a single point. Meanwhile, top universities were practically fighting each other to recruit me. But I rejected every single offer again, publicly. I even told reporters that the exams were still too easy and needed to become harder next year. Because the truth was, I never cared about becoming the top student anymore. That was only a side effect. My real goal was the knowledge itself. The harder the questions became, the more advanced information entered my brain through that mysterious power. And then, a national tragedy happened. Flight 739 suddenly disappeared with hundreds of passengers on board. Search teams failed to locate anything. No wreckage, no signal, nothing. The entire country was devastated. That was when a thought hit me. If the next exams included advanced scientific questions connected to the missing aircraft, maybe I could gain the knowledge needed to actually find it. And somehow, the government seemed to take my challenge seriously too. The education board completely changed the exam system the following year. The new papers would focus heavily on real-world current events and advanced analytical questions. There would also be no answer limit anymore. Students could write as much as they wanted. When I entered the exam hall that year, the other students stared at me like I had personally ruined their lives. And honestly, they weren't wrong. The papers had become terrifying because of me. The first few sections were manageable. One language question literally asked students how to properly raise chickens. I figured that was easy enough. But then came the physics paper, and that's when everything changed. One optional question asked students to analyze the disappearance of Flight 739 using physics, trajectory calculations, environmental conditions, and theoretical crash modeling to estimate where the aircraft could have gone down. The moment I read the question, I almost smiled, because I could feel it happening already. The second I picked up my pen, a flood of information exploded inside my mind. Advanced aerospace theories, tracking systems, signal analysis, deep ocean scanning methods, technologies that didn't even exist yet, suddenly became completely understandable to me. For the first time in my life, I felt like my brain had stepped decades ahead of the modern world. My brain kept overflowing with impossible knowledge. I suddenly understood things that modern scientists still considered science fiction. One of them was the complete design for a nuclear-powered submarine capable of diving nearly 20,000 meters below the ocean's surface, and that's when I realized it. This was the path that would eventually lead me to the missing plane. The exams ended, the results came out. 749 again. This time, people online started mocking me non-stop. Looks like the genius finally cracked. So much confidence, but still couldn't get full marks. A famous reporter named Brittany came to interview me personally. She asked with a smirk, "What happened this time? You failed to get a perfect score again." But I answered calmly. The examiners made a mistake. My answer was correct. They simply didn't understand it. Then I looked directly into the camera and added one more thing. The day I find Flight 739's wreckage, everyone will realize my answer was right. The internet exploded with laughter after that. People genuinely believed I had lost my mind. But what they didn't know was that my future father-in-law, Mr. Anderson, had enough money and influence to turn impossible ideas into reality. Together, we launched a technology company called Future Tech. Mr. Anderson was so excited about the project that he literally handed me an entire research building to work from. And then I publicly announced our company's first mission. We were going to find the missing aircraft. Most people thought it was a publicity stunt, but only 3 months later, we revealed something that shocked the entire world. A deep-sea exploration machine capable of reaching depths nobody had ever explored before. We named it Poseidon. The moment testing began, engineers watching the system nearly lost their minds. The machine moved through the ocean at unbelievable speed. Some people even joked that it looked less like a submarine and more like an underwater bullet train. But then something unexpected happened during one of the test dives. Deep below the ocean's surface, our scanners suddenly picked up another signal. Something nearby was actively scanning us back. Not far from our location, 3 Navy warships from our country were already monitoring the area. They quickly discovered the source. A foreign military submarine had been hiding underwater, assuming older radar systems would never detect them. But Poseidon's scanning technology completely exposed their location instantly. Reports later claimed the foreign officers on board were panicking, trying to understand how we had found them so easily. But honestly, I didn't care about any of that. My focus was somewhere else entirely. We redirected Poseidon toward one of the deepest trenches in the ocean. By then, the entire country was watching the live broadcast. Millions of people were glued to their screens, barely breathing. Everyone had the same question. Could we actually find Flight 739? Less than 10 minutes after the live stream started, the viewer count had already crossed several million. The moment Poseidon sealed its doors and descended into the darkness below, tension spread across the entire country. At 8,000 meters deep, the ocean became terrifyingly silent. Almost no living creatures remained that far down. Then suddenly, the cameras captured something massive moving in the darkness. A gigantic shark nearly 20 meters long slowly passed in front of the submarine. Its teeth alone looked horrifying enough to freeze people in fear. Panic spread instantly across social media. Meanwhile, things were becoming even more chaotic on the military side. Not only were enemy nations monitoring the live stream, but our own Navy command had already received emergency orders. Protect Poseidon at all costs. No matter what happens, the technology inside that submarine could never be allowed to fall into enemy hands. Down in the depths of the ocean, though, I knew nothing about the political chaos happening above. My attention was locked entirely on one thing, the wreckage. And then, the cameras finally captured what the entire world had been searching for all this time. The remains of Flight 739. The moment the wreckage appeared on screen, the entire country erupted in celebration. People were crying, cheering, hugging each other, because after all this time, Flight 739 had finally been found. But then an emergency message suddenly appeared on our internal communication system. Warning. Multiple foreign warships and submarines are gathering near the operation zone. They are attempting to capture Poseidon. Naval forces are engaging. The live stream chat instantly exploded in panic. People started asking the same terrifying question. Was a war about to start? Back at naval headquarters, the commanders were furious. One of the generals gave a direct order. We will not fire the first shot, but if they push further, crush them. Hearing all this from deep under the ocean made my blood boil. At that moment, I silently made a promise to myself. Give me 3 years, and I'll build a navy so powerful that the entire world will be afraid to challenge us again. Meanwhile, the situation above the surface kept getting worse. Warships locked onto targets. Missile systems activated. The atmosphere was becoming more dangerous every second. Then a powerful voice echoed through military communications. If the attacks don't stop within 10 seconds, show them what our missiles are truly capable of. Thankfully, things calmed down before the situation crossed the point of no return. But during all this chaos, I made another shocking announcement through Future Tech. I declared that every employee in the company would receive triple salary, 2 full days off every week, and anyone caught doing overtime would actually be punished instead of rewarded. People online completely lost their minds. The same internet users who used to insult me every day suddenly started worshiping me like a hero. Meanwhile, the chairman of the National Exam Committee, Professor Williams, was publicly humiliated after my latest success. The guy was furious. He openly declared that next year's math exam would be so difficult that even I would finally break under pressure. Around that same time, several top military officials approached me privately. They asked me to help design the next generation of aircraft carriers for the Navy, and they promised me unlimited support in return. I immediately wiped the sweat off my forehead and admitted something honestly. I don't actually know how to build warships. The officers looked confused, but then I explained my condition. I asked them to include one special question in next year's physics exam. How would the world's most advanced future aircraft carrier be designed? I told them that if the question appeared on the exam paper, I could write down the answer, and the country would gain the technology naturally. The military officers genuinely thought I sounded insane, but after everything that had already happened, they decided to take the risk anyway. So they secretly contacted the education board and arranged for the special question to be included. When Professor Williams saw that question during final approval, he almost exploded in anger. Have the military officials completely lost their minds? How is a high school student supposed to solve something like this? And then came my 4th year taking the national exams. By now, the entire country was treating the event like a world championship. People were literally placing bets online about whether I would finally fail to get full marks. Most of the subjects were easy: language arts, mathematics, history, nothing unusual. But biology and physics were a completely different story. The biology paper asked students to explain whether cancer could theoretically be cured in the future. So I calmly wrote, yes, it can. And then I explained the entire concept in detail. But the real madness started during the physics exam later that evening. Students looked at the paper and immediately started panicking. One question literally asked for a theoretical pathway toward unlimited future energy generation. People thought the exam committee had gone completely insane. But the second I read the question, a horrifying pain exploded inside my head. Then suddenly, an entire technological system appeared in my mind all at once. Controlled nuclear fusion, not theories, not guesses, complete working technology, the kind of breakthrough that could turn any nation into a global superpower overnight. At that point, I slowly raised my hand and looked at the teacher. Sir, I'm going to need 200 extra answer sheets. The entire classroom went silent. Even the teachers froze. One student whispered under his breath, "What is he writing in there? Instructions for building a doomsday weapon?" What happened inside that exam hall that day became the kind of story people would talk about for decades. The moment I started writing, the entire room went silent. I grabbed a pen in each hand and even held another one in my mouth, writing across multiple answer sheets at the same time. At that point, I didn't even look human anymore. It looked like some kind of high-speed machine had taken over my body. Teachers stood frozen beside my desk, watching page after page fill up at impossible speed. By the time the final bell rang, I was standing beside a mountain of nearly 200 completed answer sheets. But things got even crazier right after that. The second I handed over the papers, military vehicles suddenly stormed into the exam center. Armed commandos rushed inside and immediately secured my answer sheets like classified government documents. One of the generals gave an order on the spot. Seal the entire building. Nobody enters or leaves until these papers are verified. Students and teachers were completely terrified. Meanwhile, the answer sheets were rushed directly to a special research facility. The moment scientists started reading them, some of their hands literally began shaking. One researcher whispered, This isn't theoretical anymore. This is actual controlled nuclear fusion technology." Another scientist stared at the pages in disbelief. "If this works, our country could leap centuries ahead of the rest of the world." At that point, people online had started joking that national exams were now more dangerous than military projects. A few weeks later, I officially announced the launch of my new clean energy company. Not long after that, the generals returned to meet me again. Honestly, I half expected them to ask me to build a time machine next. Instead, they handed me official military partnership documents along with government-backed defense licenses. And just like that, the entire game changed. Future Tech was no longer just another tech company anymore. It was becoming something massive enough to reshape the balance of power across the entire world. Meanwhile, inside the research center, scientists had completely lost control. Teams of experts were practically fighting each other over my answer sheets. The lead scientist there, Professor Zhang, was already over 70 years old and had spent his entire life researching nuclear energy. Even he looked shaken while reading the pages. "This can't be real." He kept repeating the same thing over and over. "Hurry up, activate the supercomputers, verify every calculation immediately." The atmosphere inside the lab became pure chaos. Junior scientists who normally treated Professor Zhang like a legend were literally pushing past him just to grab the papers first. The old professor started yelling at them in frustration. "I spent decades earning your respect, and now you're shoving me aside like this?" But nobody cared anymore. At that moment, everyone inside the lab was starving for knowledge. Even the military officials watching from the corner could tell something historic had happened just by looking at the scientists' expressions. Then suddenly, Professor Zhang noticed another set of pages that had been tossed aside earlier. Most researchers had ignored them because they assumed it was some random biology answer. But the moment he started reading, his entire body froze. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Wait, what is this?" One of the researchers walked over. Professor Zhang slowly looked up and whispered, "This is a complete cancer treatment model." The room instantly fell silent. Even the generals looked stunned, because the biology question about cancer had originally been added to the exam almost as a joke. Nobody expected a serious answer, but the response I had written was so advanced that the scientists genuinely couldn't process whether it was genius or madness. Professor Zhang kept staring at the pages in disbelief. He slowly muttered, "This answer combines ancient medicine, energy pathways, body pressure science, and natural balance theories together." To modern researchers, the whole thing sounded impossible. One scientist finally asked the obvious question: how can cancer treatment be this simple? But General Walker had started thinking differently by then. After everything I had already accomplished, he wasn't willing to dismiss anything anymore. So he immediately called in one of the country's most respected medical masters, Dr. Parker. The man was famous for combining traditional healing methods with modern medicine and had spent decades studying ancient treatment systems. When Dr. Parker arrived, General Walker handed him my biology answer sheet. "Tell us honestly," the general said. "How realistic is this?" The old doctor carefully read through every single page. The room stayed completely silent while everyone waited for his reaction. After several long minutes, Dr. Parker finally let out a deep breath. Then he quietly said something that shocked the entire room. "The answer is brilliant." He looked back at the pages again before continuing. "As far as theoretical cancer treatment goes, this may genuinely be one of the best approaches possible." Everyone immediately leaned forward, but then the doctor's expression became heavy. "There's just one problem." General Walker frowned. "What problem?" Dr. Parker slowly shook his head. "The techniques described here require an unbelievable level of medical instinct and body analysis. Skills like these are disappearing from the world." He explained that decades ago there were still many master healers capable of understanding the human body at that level. But now, almost nobody remained. The doctor admitted that even across the entire country there were probably fewer than 5 people left who could truly understand those methods properly. The military officials looked stunned. One of them argued, "But there are medical schools everywhere now. Thousands of students study alternative medicine every year." Dr. Parker gave a bitter smile. "Memorizing textbooks and earning degrees isn't the same as mastering a healing art." Then he pointed toward the answer sheets. "A real master spends decades learning directly from experience, observation, discipline, practice, patience." According to him, Modern students wanted fast success, money, luxury, and status. Very few people were willing to dedicate 20 or 30 years mastering something ancient and difficult anymore. He also explained another major issue. Even the medicinal herbs used today were often low quality, mass-produced, or chemically altered. Some were harvested too early. Others were mixed with fake ingredients. The original effectiveness had slowly disappeared over time. By the end of the conversation, everyone in the room had gone quiet again. General Walker kept staring at my answer sheet silently, because by now, he finally understood something terrifying. I wasn't just some genius student anymore. I was becoming the key to knowledge humanity had either forgotten or never discovered in the first place. Ancient medicine, future technology, energy systems, scientific breakthroughs. It was like centuries of lost information were somehow locked inside my mind. Meanwhile, outside the research facility, the entire world was still waiting for answers. Could a 19-year-old kid actually solve humanity's biggest problems? Or was all of this simply too unbelievable to be real? Dr. Parker eventually gave one final bitter explanation. These days, people trust modern hospitals for diagnosis. But when treatment fails, they suddenly run toward ancient medicine, hoping for miracles. Then he shook his head. That's like breaking something with one system and expecting another system to magically fix it afterward. According to him, the entire medical world had become confused. Everyone wanted quick cures, but very few people truly understood the human body anymore. After that meeting, the world kept drowning in arguments, theories, and debates. Meanwhile, I was completely relaxed. One morning, Emma and I were practicing a series of breathing and movement exercises in the courtyard based on balance, motion, and body control techniques. After barely 5 minutes, she looked completely exhausted. She dropped onto a chair and groaned. "How is this supposed to be exercise? It looks easy, but my entire body feels like it's falling apart." I laughed and told her that was exactly why the training worked. I explained that if she practiced it every day, her body would age slower, recover faster, and stay healthier for much longer. Of course, she accused me of sounding like some ancient martial arts master from a fantasy movie. After that, we headed to Future Tech headquarters. The atmosphere inside the company looked calm on the outside, but inside my mind, things were moving at full speed. The moment I entered my office, I called both Emma and my secretary, Sophia, into the room. Sophia was about to open her laptop and start taking notes when I immediately stopped her. No computers, no internet, nothing digital. Both of them looked confused. Then I lowered my voice and said something that instantly changed the mood. What I'm about to discuss cannot leak outside this room. Even a single sentence reaching the public would create global chaos. After that, I started giving direct orders. I told Sophia that I wanted the world's most advanced biology, chemistry, and physics laboratories built immediately. Money didn't matter anymore. I wanted only the highest level equipment available on Earth. Sophia nervously reminded me that many foreign technology companies already disliked us because of Future Tech's growing influence. She warned that getting advanced research equipment wouldn't be easy, but I simply smiled. If they refuse directly, we'll find another route. Shell companies, international partners, private distributors, there's always a way. Then I added something even bigger. It's time to bring the government into this project too. Future Tech can't carry something this massive alone anymore. Our next target was no longer submarines or aircraft technology. It was unlimited clean energy, controlled nuclear fusion. The moment I explained the estimated cost of the project, Sophia nearly stopped breathing. I casually told her the starting budget alone would likely exceed $1 trillion. She stared at me like I had completely lost my mind. $1 trillion? That's the kind of money entire countries struggle with. But I only laughed. That's just the beginning. Then I explained something that left both her and Emma speechless. If this machine succeeds, energy itself will become nearly unlimited, and once that happens, money will stop holding the same value it does today. I ordered Sophia to immediately register a new company under the name Future Energy, and I specifically told her that we wouldn't apply for an ordinary electricity license. We would apply for full nuclear energy authorization. At that point, Sophia genuinely looked like someone trapped inside a science fiction movie. But for me, this was still only the beginning. Because if the fusion project truly succeeded, our country wouldn't just become powerful. Human civilization itself would change forever. Energy shortages would disappear. Space exploration would accelerate. Entire industries would transform overnight. And deep down, I already knew something else. The final piece of the puzzle still hadn't arrived yet. The next national exam, because somewhere inside those future questions was the last key needed to fully activate the machine I was planning to build. As Sophia walked out of the office that day, only one thought kept repeating inside her head. Maybe this 19-year-old genius wasn't trying to change the country anymore. Maybe he was trying to change the future of humanity itself. The moment Sophia realized something terrifying, the color drained from her face. If I was still confidently claiming that I could score full marks again in future exams, then that meant the cancer treatment answer I wrote was probably correct too. That single thought was enough to completely shake her. Sophia had spent years handling billion-dollar businesses and negotiating with some of the most powerful people in the world. But today, she felt genuinely overwhelmed for the first time in her life. By the time she stood up from her chair, there were visible sweat marks left behind. And it wasn't fear. It was the pressure of realizing she might be witnessing a breakthrough capable of changing human history itself. At that moment, Emma suddenly walked over, kissed me happily, and excitedly said she was going to call her father and tell him everything. Then she practically skipped out of the room. To be fair, she already knew about most of my plans. But seeing me speak so confidently today, almost like I already had the future mapped out in my hands, made her fall for me all over again. Honestly, it looked like she escaped the room quickly, because staying any longer would have completely destroyed her self-control. After everyone left, I stretched lazily and picked up my phone. I figured I should share the good news with General Rowan first, but the moment I tried calling him, his phone was switched off. That immediately felt strange. So I tried calling General Walker next, then a few other military officials. Nothing. Every single number was either unreachable or completely offline. Now that was suspicious. I frowned while staring at the phone. All of this technology had only become possible because we worked together in the first place. If they hadn't secretly added those impossible questions into the exams, I never would have received the knowledge connected to them. So why had everyone suddenly disappeared? Had something gone wrong? Were they hiding from me? Or had some massive situation appeared behind the scenes? I walked toward the window and stared outside quietly. Something felt off. Too many important people had vanished at the same time, and whenever powerful people suddenly went silent, it usually meant something huge was about to happen. The only question was whether that silence was preparing for disaster or preparing for my next breakthrough. Either way, I decided there was no point waiting around anymore. Future energy needed to move forward immediately, so I sent Sophia directly to Naval Headquarters to speak with the officials face-to-face instead of relying on calls. Meanwhile, across the city, Emma's father, Mr. Anderson, was relaxing inside one of the most expensive private clubs in the country alongside his longtime friend, former business tycoon Richard Vaughn. After the success of the submarine project, the two old businessmen had become almost inseparable. They were laughing, drinking, and enjoying themselves when suddenly Mr. Anderson's phone started ringing. Vaughn immediately groaned. Ignore it for once and enjoy the evening. But the moment Mr. Anderson saw Emma's name on the screen, his entire expression changed. Quiet down, he said instantly. My daughter's calling. Then he quickly answered the phone with a smile. Hey, sweetheart, what happened? Do we invest in Lucas's new project? The moment Emma asked that question on the phone, Mr. Anderson answered without even pausing. Of course we do. Why would that even need discussion? The excitement on his face was so obvious that Richard Vaughn immediately realized something massive was happening. Just seconds earlier, Vaughn had been relaxing comfortably during a massage session. Now he practically jumped out of his seat and kicked everyone else out of the room so he could hear the conversation clearly. He moved so close to Mr. Anderson that he was basically breathing into the phone. Mr. Anderson finally sighed and said into the call, Fine, I'll let Vaughn buy 10% too. He's standing right next to me acting desperate already. The moment the call ended, Mr. Anderson shoved him backward. Back off, old man. I'm not interested in men. Vaughn burst out laughing. I'm not interested in you either. I'm interested in the project. Then his expression suddenly turned serious. 10% for that price? If I don't invest in this, just assume I've completely lost my mind. Mr. Anderson looked surprised. You seriously have that kind of money ready? Vaughn immediately waved his hand. If I have to, I'll sell land, buildings, malls, everything. Then he pointed dramatically toward him. Your future son-in-law isn't a normal genius anymore. That kid is a gold mine. And after that, the financial world exploded into chaos. The moment Mr. Anderson suddenly started selling hundreds of millions worth of stocks and assets, the market immediately panicked. Investors thought some secret economic disaster was about to happen. Small investors began dumping shares in fear. Even major banks started calling him non-stop, demanding explanations and accusing him of destroying the market. But Mr. Anderson didn't care at all. Meanwhile, Vaughn also started selling malls, buildings, and properties at insane speed just to gather cash for the investment. Real estate companies practically went insane trying to buy everything. At the same time, poor Sophia had arrived at a government office to officially apply for Future Energy's operating license. Normally, FutureTech's reputation was already so powerful that paperwork moved quickly wherever we went. But the moment the clerk checking the documents turned to the final page, the man nearly stopped breathing. He stared at the file with trembling hands, because written clearly on the application was nuclear energy production and commercial distribution. The clerk immediately started stuttering. "Ma'am, this can't be right." He looked completely terrified. "A private company requesting a nuclear energy license? There's no way I can approve this. If something goes wrong, I won't just lose my job. I could disappear completely." Sophia simply smiled calmly. "Then call your supervisor." The supervisor arrived. He checked the file and immediately looked just as horrified. Then he called someone above him. Within half an hour, 7 or 8 senior government officials had gathered around the same desk. It was the middle of summer, the air conditioners were running at full power, and yet every single official in the room was sweating heavily while staring at that application like it was a live bomb sitting on the table. Senior Officer Stephen Bennett sat there wiping sweat from his forehead while staring at the Future Energy application. If this request had come from anyone else, security would have thrown them out of the building instantly. But this was Future Tech, the company that had already shocked governments, scientists, and militaries across the world. That was exactly what made the situation terrifying. Rejecting the request was dangerous. Approving it felt even more dangerous. To him, the whole thing felt like playing with fire while standing next to a fuel tank. After taking a deep breath, Stephen finally looked at Sophia and spoke carefully. "Listen, Ms. Sophia. If Future Tech wants to launch another normal company, we'll support it completely. It'll bring jobs, money, and prestige to the city." Then his expression became serious. "But nuclear energy, that's way above my authority. For something like this, you'll probably need approval from the highest levels of government." Sophia simply smiled calmly. "Don't reject it so quickly. First hear how much we're investing into the project." Stephen's heartbeat immediately sped up. "How much?" Sophia answered without hesitation. $100 billion. The room instantly fell silent. After all, once investors like Mr. Anderson and Richard Vaughn joined the project, the company's value had exploded far beyond normal expectations. Stephen's chair practically creaked under him as he leaned back in shock. On one side, the project looked unbelievably risky. But on the other side, if that level of investment truly entered his city, it could completely transform his career and reputation forever. After a few seconds of silence, he made up his mind. Forget fear. Opportunities like this only appeared once in a lifetime. He immediately straightened his posture and said firmly, "I can't approve this myself, but I'll personally take this file to the Capitol and present it directly to higher authorities." Just as she was about to leave, Sophia casually dropped another bombshell. "Oh, and one more thing." She looked directly at him before continuing. "The Indian Navy is preparing to become an official partner in this project too." The moment he heard that, Stephen's entire attitude changed. Now this wasn't just some private company chasing crazy dreams anymore. The military was involved. That changed everything. Without wasting another second, he grabbed the file and hurried toward headquarters personally. Meanwhile, Sophia headed directly to Naval Command to meet General Rowan. But the moment she reached the entrance, security guards stopped her immediately. "Sorry, ma'am. Nobody is allowed inside right now. Senior officials are handling an extremely classified operation." Sophia calmly replied, "I'm from Future Tech. Lucas sent me." The moment the guards heard my name, their expressions changed instantly. One guard immediately rushed inside. Another awkwardly smiled at her and explained, "Please don't misunderstand. Orders were strict. We weren't supposed to let anyone in no matter what happened." Then he lowered his voice slightly. "But we were also specifically told that if anyone arrived on behalf of Lucas, they should be brought inside immediately." Only a few minutes later, General Walker himself came out personally to receive her. The moment he saw Sophia, he smiled warmly. "Looks like little Lucas is causing trouble again." Then he laughed quietly before adding something unexpected. "To be honest, the first time I met that kid, I never imagined he would change the world this fast." General Walker looked genuinely emotional while speaking. "I always knew you'd do something extraordinary one day, but I never imagined you'd reach this level so quickly." Then he handed over another official authorization document. This time it was a weapons development license. Honestly, even I was surprised. The general explained that the scientists had already finished reviewing my 200 answer sheets. The full verification process wasn't complete yet, but according to the research teams, the technology inside those pages could save the country decades of research time. "That license belongs to you now," he said proudly. "You earned it." Right then, General Rowan suddenly called him. The moment Walker answered, Rowan's excited voice practically exploded through the phone. "Sir, the scientists confirmed it. Lucas's formulas are accurate." But then his tone changed. "There's just one problem." Walker frowned immediately. "What problem?" Rowan answered carefully. "The entire fusion system depends on a completely new element mentioned in Lucas's research." He paused before continuing. He called it the Lucan element. Then came the real issue. If we can obtain that element, we could theoretically start fusion testing almost immediately. But according to every database and periodic table in existence, this element doesn't exist anywhere on Earth. Walker slowly turned toward me after hearing that. I simply smiled. After ending the call, he looked completely confused. "Son, what exactly is this Lucan element? I've never heard of it before." I laughed softly. "You've never heard of it because humanity hasn't created it yet." Then I explained everything calmly. "It isn't a naturally occurring element. We'll have to synthesize it ourselves. And that," I said while pointing toward the future energy proposal, "is the real reason I'm building the company. My first objective is creating the Lucan element inside a laboratory." For a few seconds, General Walker genuinely looked speechless. From his perspective, I either sounded like the greatest scientific mind in history or a complete lunatic. Creating an entirely new element sounded like something straight out of a superhero movie. But after witnessing Poseidon and everything else I had already accomplished, he no longer doubted me easily. Finally, he looked directly into my eyes and said firmly, "All right, do it." Then his expression hardened with determination. "The military will support you completely." I could tell from his face that part of him still didn't fully understand what I was trying to build. His imagination hadn't even reached the level of futuristic science fiction concepts yet. But he understood one thing very clearly. If this project succeeded, the rewards would completely change the future of civilization. He immediately asked, "Then what's stopping us?" I spread my hands helplessly. The biggest obstacle isn't technology anymore. It's bureaucracy. I explained that private companies controlling nuclear technology was still considered an extremely sensitive issue. We had already submitted the applications, but approval was far from guaranteed. And beyond that, we still needed massive amounts of high-end equipment, rare materials, and advanced manufacturing systems from around the world. Before I could continue further, General Walker waved his hand dismissively. "That's all." Then he smiled confidently. "Leave the paperwork and political pressure to us." His voice became serious again. "If what you're saying is real, then you won't be standing alone anymore. The entire country will stand behind you like a shield." Then he pointed toward me. "You focus on moving forward. We'll handle the storms." I smiled and told General Walker that this was exactly why I trusted him. Then I brought up the real topic. "Sir, would the Navy or military be interested in becoming an official partner in future energy?" He agreed almost instantly. "Absolutely. Even if you hadn't asked, I was planning to suggest it myself." According to him, government support was guaranteed already, but military involvement would make the project far more stable and protected. I nodded calmly. "Fine, but I have one condition." The room became serious immediately. "The military can invest, earn profits, and buy any technology it needs at discounted rates. I have no issue with that." Then I made my position crystal clear. "But ownership and control of the company's core technology stays entirely with me. If that condition isn't accepted, the discussion ends here." That was always my mindset. Flexible when needed, unbreakable when it came to control. And honestly, I wasn't afraid anymore. At 21, I had already discovered technologies that entire superpowers were still chasing blindly. The government wasn't stupid enough to destroy the person generating those breakthroughs. They knew attacking me would mean shutting the door on their own future. General Walker thought quietly for a moment before replying. "From the military side, I agree completely." Then he sighed. "But I can't make the final decision alone. I'll push for it personally." His eyes narrowed slightly. "And if someone tries to block this project, I'll make sure they regret it." I laughed softly and thanked him. Then I made the offer official. $2 billion for 20% ownership. Walker agreed immediately. The moment he got into his car, he called one of the highest officials in the Commerce Department directly. Ironically, at that exact moment, the official had been yelling at poor Stephen Bennett. "You've completely lost your mind," the man shouted. "A private nuclear company, and the military supports this? Who even told you that?" Before Stephen could answer, the official's phone suddenly rang. The second he saw General Walker's name on the screen, his attitude changed completely. "Sir." "Yes, of course, sir." Then his tone became extremely respectful. "No problems at all. I'll personally handle anyone causing delays." After ending the call, the man turned towards Stephen with an awkward smile. Well, Stephen, don't take my earlier words personally. I was only concerned for your career. Then he cleared his throat. The approval process can move forward. Stephen almost laughed internally. The moment the military entered the conversation, even powerful officials suddenly became polite. Meanwhile, General Walker headed directly to the capital and arranged an emergency meeting between military leaders and top government authorities. The discussion room quickly turned chaotic. Military officials were strongly supporting the project. We need this technology at any cost, one of them argued. If controlled fusion becomes real, our national power and defense capabilities could increase tenfold. But several government bureaucrats still looked skeptical. Some dismissed the entire thing as fantasy. One official openly said, "This sounds more like science fiction than actual science." The meeting quickly turned into complete chaos. Some officials were furious. You're seriously planning to burn $2 billion because of one young genius? Where exactly is this money supposed to come from? And what happens if this entire project fails? The government side kept arguing that the risks were insane. Meanwhile, the military officers pushed back just as aggressively. "You people only know how to protect budgets," one commander snapped. "You never think about long-term national security." The bureaucrats fired back immediately. Money doesn't grow on trees. If this project collapses, who takes responsibility? The argument became so loud that people started shouting over each other across the conference table. Finally, General Walker lost his patience completely. He slammed his hand onto the table so hard the entire room went silent. "Enough," his voice echoed through the meeting hall. "You're all obsessed with money, right?" He pointed directly at the officials opposing the project. "Fine. Then don't contribute a single dollar." The room froze. Walker continued angrily. "The Navy will fund the entire investment ourselves." Then his eyes narrowed sharply. "But remember one thing clearly. If the military carries this risk alone, then none of you get a single share of the profits later." That statement immediately changed the atmosphere. Several senior officials who had stayed quiet until then suddenly stepped in to calm him down. "Walker, relax. Nobody's against innovation here. $2 billion is still a huge decision. We just need time." But Walker wasn't interested anymore. "The time for hesitation is over." He pointed toward everyone in the room. "You people only know how to move files between departments. You have no idea what groundbreaking technology is worth." Then he delivered his final decision. "The Navy will move forward with or without your approval." And with that, he walked out of the meeting in pure anger. During the flight back, his assistant Rowan looked nervous. "Sir, was this really the right move? What if the project fails later? Those same people will blame everything on you." General Walker suddenly burst into laughter. "Rowan, those people are just scared of losing money." Then his expression became confident again. "But once this project succeeds," he smirked, "they'll be the first ones standing outside our doors asking for investment opportunities. And when that happens," he added calmly, "we'll decide whether they deserve a seat at the table." The next morning, I had barely arrived at Future Tech headquarters when General Walker walked into my office personally with his entire team carrying official contracts. Even at 70 years old, the man looked more energized than people half his age. He placed the documents on my desk proudly. "It's done." Both the government and military had officially signed off on the partnership. No more obstacles. I smiled while reviewing the agreement. As long as General Walker remained alive and influential, I knew nobody would dare interfere openly. But the world changed quickly. Power changed quickly, too. And if he ever disappeared one day, people would absolutely try rewriting those agreements for their own benefit. That realization made me silently reach a final decision. The true secret behind the Lucan element would remain known only to me, no matter what happened. And here's the video ends. If you want the next part of this video, please comment below. Also, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more such content.